You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at least be 1,000 times?
We have released every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can characterize the numbers however you want it.
Reclaiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times.
It's not. It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Do you think it might be your job to know the number?
My job is to provide for the safety and security of this country. My job is not to engage in political innuendo.
Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Today we need to talk about something that is happening right now behind the scenes in Washington. It is a story about secrets, a very powerful man, and a stack of papers that could change everything for Donald Trump. You might have heard the name Kash Patel. He is now the person in charge of the FBI. That is a huge job. But there is a history here that most people are not talking about. Before he got this big promotion, he had to go into a room and tell a group of people everything he knew about Donald Trump and some very sensitive government documents. This matters because those words he said under oath are still there. They are locked away in a file. People are calling this prison locked in because if the situation ever changes, those words could be used in a courtroom. It is a strange situation. The man who is supposed to lead the police is the same man who had to give evidence about his boss. We are going to look at what he said, why he tried to stay quiet, and what it means for the future of the country. It sounds like a movie, but it is real life, and it is happening right now. Let's get into it.
Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee today sharply criticized former special counsel Jack Smith over his investigation of President Trump, which produced more than 40 criminal charges that have since been dropped. GOP lawmakers accused Smith of partisanship, but as Ali Rogan reports, Smith defended his conduct, saying the law required him to act.
There was a very tense moment where people were asking questions about how many times a certain name appeared in some secret files. Someone asked if the name appeared 1,000 times. The person answering said the number does not really matter. They said they have not released any names that were not credible. When asked if they could just release all the information that the law allows, they said they did not know the exact number. They said their job is to keep the country safe, not to deal with political rumors. Right now, the man running the FBI is Kash Patel. He is known for being very loyal to Donald Trump. He has defended him through many different problems and investigations over the years. But long before he was the director of the FBI, something very serious happened. He was forced to go before a federal grand jury. This is a group of people who look at evidence to see if a crime was committed. He had to talk about how Donald Trump handled very secret documents at his home in Florida, a place called Mar-a-Lago. Kash Patel did not want to do this. He tried to say no. He even tried to use his right to stay silent so he wouldn't get in trouble, but a judge told him he had to answer the questions. To make him talk, the government gave him something called limited immunity. This means the words he said could not be used to put him in jail, but he had to tell the truth about everything else. He had to sit there and tell the lawyers what he knew. He had to talk about boxes being moved. He had to talk about claims that the documents were no longer secret. He had to explain the whole plan. This testimony is sealed, which means the public cannot see it, but it exists. It is written down and saved, and now the man who gave that testimony is the boss of the very agency that was investigating the case. This is a big deal because the case about the documents was very serious. Investigators gathered a lot of evidence. They found that very sensitive information about national defense was taken to a private club. Some people in the government have complained that the investigation was not fair. They say it was based on politics. But the people who ran the investigation say they had to do it because that is what the law requires. The investigators had evidence that someone told employees to move boxes after the government asked for them back. In the legal world, hiding things like that is called obstruction. They also had evidence that investigators were lied to about what was in the house. The case was so strong that the lead lawyer said he had enough proof to win in court. Kash Patel was right in the middle of all of this. Before he talked to the grand jury, he told news outlets that he saw Donald Trump make those documents public and not secret anymore. The lawyers wanted to know if that was actually true. They wanted to know exactly what he saw and when he saw it. Because he tried to avoid talking, the judge had to step in. The fact that he got immunity is very important. It shows that the lawyers thought what he had to say was a huge part of the case. They were willing to protect him just to get his words on the record. Once you say something under oath like that, you cannot take it back. You cannot change the story later. If the legal situation ever changes for Donald Trump, that testimony is ready and waiting. Now we have to look at why this is so important right now. There is a lot of tension because Donald Trump wants to control the groups that could investigate him. Kash Patel is the perfect example of this. He knows what he told the lawyers. He knows how bad that information could be. And now he is in a position where he can either try to hide that information or be the one who eventually has to let it out. The whole problem started when the National Archives found out that boxes were missing from the White House. These were papers that belonged to the government, not to a person. When they asked for them back, there was a lot of pushback. Some boxes were given back, but others were kept. Eventually, the FBI had to go into the house in Florida with a search warrant. They found secret papers all over the place. They were in storage rooms, offices, and even the bedroom. Some of these papers were about very dangerous things like nuclear programs and how the military works. This is the kind of information that other countries would want to steal. If the wrong people saw these papers, it could put lives at risk. The lawyers were not just looking at the papers themselves. They were looking at whether there was a plan to hide them. An employee at the house told the government that they were told to move boxes after a legal order was sent to give them back. If that is true, it is a very serious crime. Usually, when regular people do things like that, they go to prison for a long time. That is why they needed to hear from Kash Patel. When he finally went to the grand jury in late 2022, he tried to use the Fifth Amendment. That is the right to stay silent so you don't incriminate yourself. By doing that, he was basically saying that telling the truth might get him in legal trouble. That is why the government gave him immunity. Once he had that protection, he had to talk. We still do not know exactly what he said because grand jury meetings are top secret. But we know it was important. We know the lawyers were asking about the secret papers and the plan to hide them. Whatever he said is now a permanent record. It is locked in. Now, in the second term of the presidency, Kash Patel is the director of the FBI. He was picked for the job even though he was a big part of this investigation. During his meetings to get the job in early 2025, some leaders asked him to show everyone his testimony. He said no. They asked him about why he tried to stay silent before. They asked if he could really be fair while running the FBI. He didn't give many details and just said he was loyal to the rules of the country. Right now, there are worries about how the FBI is being run. Some reports say the FBI is spending a lot of time looking into people who disagree with the president. They are using statistics that some agents say are not true. Some say the FBI is now being used to get back at people. The agency that used to investigate the president for crimes is now run by his most loyal friend. This situation shows the big struggle happening right now. Loyal friends are being put in charge of the places that are supposed to make sure everyone follows the law. They are trying to stop the investigations. But the evidence does not go away. The testimony is still there. The big question is whether the system will ever use that evidence or if it will stay hidden forever. When someone gives testimony under immunity, it is a very powerful thing. It can be used in future court cases. Kash Patel cannot say he forgot or changed his story now. If he did, he would be in big trouble for lying. That is why people say the evidence is locked in. The foundation for a court case is already built. It is just sitting in a file. If the testimony actually helped Donald Trump, you would think they would want everyone to see it. If it proved that everything was done correctly, it would make the president look good. The fact that they are keeping it a secret suggests that the words in that file might not be very helpful. It suggests that what was said under oath might be different from what was said to the news. It is very strange that the head of the FBI is sitting on secret words about the president's potential crimes. For years, the FBI was called names and told it was corrupt. Now, the person in charge is someone who was forced to testify in a criminal case against the leader. He knows more about the legal risks than almost anyone else. The reports coming out now say the FBI is being used to protect the president and punish people who speak against him. If that is true, it changes how the law works. The FBI is supposed to be independent. It is not supposed to take sides. But right now, it seems to be doing the opposite. It is being used to settle scores. But things can change. Protection from the government does not last forever. If the people in charge of Congress change in a few years, they can ask for these documents. They can investigate the FBI. If a new president takes over later, they could open the case back up. They could look at that secret testimony. The immunity protects Kash Patel, but it does not protect Donald Trump. Everything said in that room can be used against him. The reason there is such a big fight for power is because of this evidence. As long as the right people are in charge, the files stay closed. As long as the friends are in control, no one goes to court. But if that control slips, the evidence becomes a very big problem. This is a test for the country. It asks if the law is the same for everyone or if the person in charge of the police can keep secrets to protect the person who gave him the job. When we look at what is happening with Kash Patel and the FBI, it tells us a lot about how power works. The most important thing to understand is the idea of locked-in evidence. In the legal world, when you say something under oath, it is like writing it in stone. You cannot just erase it later because you have a new job or because your friend is now the boss. This creates a very strange situation where the person leading the country's top police agency is essentially a star witness in a case that could hurt the president. This matters because it shows a breakdown in how our government is supposed to work. Usually there is a wall between the people who run the country and the people who investigate crimes. This wall is there so that no one is above the law. When that wall comes down and the investigator is a close friend of the person being investigated, the whole system starts to look different. It moves away from being about justice and starts being about protection. We can compare this to things that have happened in the past. Think back to the Watergate scandal in the 1970s. Back then, a president tried to use the power of the government to stop an investigation into his friends. He tried to get the CIA and the FBI to look the other way. Eventually, it didn't work because there were people inside the system who believed the law was more important than the president. The difference today is that the people being put in charge are chosen specifically because they are loyal. It is a much more direct way of controlling the outcome. We see similar things in other countries where the leader takes over the courts and the police. In those places, the law is used as a tool to help friends and hurt enemies. When we hear reports that the FBI is now looking into people who criticize the president, it sounds a lot like what happens in those other countries. It is a shift from investigating crimes to enforcing loyalty. Another thing to analyze is the use of immunity. Usually immunity is used to catch a big fish. Prosecutors give a smaller person a pass, so they will tell on the person at the top. The fact that Kash Patel was given immunity means at that time the government saw Donald Trump as the big fish and Patel as the person who could help them catch him. Now that same person is running the agency. It is a complete flip of roles. The comparison here is like a witness in a trial being made the judge. It makes people lose trust in the system. If people think the FBI is only there to protect one person, they stop believing that the law is fair. This has long-term effects on how a country functions. If the referees are on one of the teams, the game doesn't work anymore. The locked-in testimony is like a ticking time bomb. It doesn't matter how much power someone has right now, they cannot make that testimony disappear. It is a reminder that in a democracy, power is usually temporary. Leaders change, and when they do, the files that were hidden often come out into the light. This creates a massive incentive for the people in power to never let go of it. They aren't just fighting for their jobs. They are fighting to keep those files sealed. So what happens next? There are a few ways this could go, and none of them are very simple. In the short term, we are likely to see the FBI change a lot. Under Kash Patel, the agency will probably focus less on things that could hurt the current administration and more on the people the administration doesn't like. We might see more investigations into political rivals or people in the media. This will likely cause a lot of fighting in the government and in the news. It will make the country feel even more divided because one side will see the FBI as a hero and the other will see it as a villain. Another short-term effect is the brain drain at the FBI. Many people who work there are career professionals who want to stay out of politics. If they feel like the agency is becoming a political tool, they might quit. This could leave the FBI with less experience and more people who are only there because they are loyal to the leader. In the long term, the consequences are even bigger. The most important thing is that locked-in testimony. As long as Donald Trump is in power, that testimony will stay secret. But the moment he is not in power, that file becomes a massive legal risk. Whether it is in 4 years or longer, eventually someone else will have the keys to the FBI. When that happens, they can unseal those records. If that testimony shows that crimes were committed, it could lead to a court case even years after the events happened. This is why the fight for the next few elections will be so intense. It is not just about who gets to make the laws. It is about who gets to see the secrets. We might also see a change in how the law works in America. If this way of running the FBI becomes the new normal, then every time a new president comes in, they might fire everyone and put in their own loyalists. The FBI would stop being an independent agency and start being a group that changes every time we get a new leader. This would make it very hard to solve real crimes that have nothing to do with politics because the agency would be too busy fighting political battles. History shows us that when a system is tested like this, it either breaks or it gets stronger. If the public and other parts of the government, like the courts, insist on the truth coming out, the system might survive. But if the locked-in evidence stays buried forever, it could mean that the rules have changed for good. The most likely outcome is a long period of legal and political battles. We will see fights over subpoenas, fights over who gets to see the grand jury files, and constant arguments about what is fair. The prison locked-in situation means that the shadow of this investigation will follow Donald Trump for the rest of his life. The door is locked for now, but the evidence is still there, waiting for someone to turn the key.